We're live now, Chair.
Thank you, Jill. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Councillor Elma Hilawi, Councillor for Newport Ward and Chair of Corporate Parenting Board. First of all, I'd like to welcome you all this afternoon to this meeting, and I'd like to thank you for your indulgence in dividing this meeting into parts A and B. This is part one, and we're going to have part one or part B, and then part two on the 23rd. The reason for this is that the agenda was still a long agenda for this meeting, as indeed it was for the last meeting. And I know some people were quite perturbed about the length of the meeting. That's unfortunate because it was an excellent meeting. But we do have some statutory requirements, and we do have some items on the agenda which we have to listen to. And because we ask questions and are quite clear about our intentions, finding out what's going on, investigating what's happening, that takes quite a lot of time. Okay, I think, is that echo gone now? Okay, thanks. So just a bit of housekeeping then. Again, please, I'd remind everyone to keep their microphones muted, and if you would like to speak, to raise your hand, and I will invite you to speak. Then remember to unmute and then mute again when you finish, please. There is on the WebEx, there is a raising hand facility which we can use if that's convenient. And if I don't see your hand at any time, don't feel that I don't want you to contribute, because that's quite not the case. I would like everyone to contribute. Sometimes I just can't see someone because I'm looking at papers on my desk, looking at the screen and thinking about what the next items are, etc. So it's not deliberate if I don't see your hand, first of all, but just keep trying and I'll invite you to speak, please. Remember that our questions are of an investigative nature in Corporate Parenting Board. It's not exactly the same as a scrutiny. We are looking for evidence that the very best outcomes are being achieved by the service for the children and young people in Middlesbrough. So that's our intention. We need to know that when we leave this meeting tonight, as indeed every other Corporate Parenting Board meeting, that we have understood through our investigations that progress is being made for our children and young people. So that's what we're trying to achieve in each meeting through our investigations in Corporate Parenting Board. Okay, I have one introduction to make for a new person on our call today. Jo Russell, this is your first time, I think, at Corporate Parenting. Jo is a health improvement specialist from Public Health, and she's attending on behalf of Rebecca Scott. So I'm just looking for Jo on my screen. She might wave to us. Oh, can't see her there. I thought I'd seen her earlier. Okay, so we'll move on to the agenda and look at any apologies for absence. I don't think Susie can contribute right now, maybe. Has anyone else any apologies on behalf of anyone who would normally be here, please? Thanks. Sue Butcher. You need...
Alma, it's Susie here. Can you hear me okay?
We can now, Susie. That sounds a lot better.
Hi, I do apologise. As per normal, for some reason, I have terrible technical difficulties. So good afternoon, everybody. Yes, we've had apologies for absence from Councillor High and Councillor Craig Wright.
Thank you. Anyone? Sue, did you have an apology? Sue Butcher?
Yes, from an officer, Councillor Hilawi, from Rob Brown, who's on annual leave.
Okay, thank you. And as I mentioned earlier, we have Councillor Mika Smiles, who's going to join us a bit later on when her other meeting's finished. And then we had someone else said Dennis McCabe, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Caroline,
Dennis McCabe.
was that you that said Dennis?
Yes,
Thank
it was.
you. Thanks, Caroline. Is that all? Thank you. Is that all the apologies now? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to any declarations of interest. Item 2. I can't see anyone. No, okay, so we'll take that. There aren't any. Minutes from the Corporate Parenting Board meeting held on the 14th of December. Excellent minutes, in my opinion. I'd like someone to propose that they are a true record of that meeting, please. They were very long, detailed minutes, very accurate as far as I could see. But would someone else like to propose?
Yes, very good minutes. And
thank you, Teresa.
Propose that they're correct.
Thank you. Anyone like to second that, please? Thanks, Zafar, and thanks, Jim. Thank you. Fine. Thanks very much. So we're now moving on to item 4, which is the COVID-19 update. And I'm looking to Sue Butcher, the Director of Children's Services, to give us an update on the COVID situation now. Thank you, Sue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halawi. I'm just going to give an update as to how we are working through COVID at the moment. It is local authority leaning, as it were. So, but if any colleague wants to come in afterwards with how they're working through COVID, then that might be a really good idea. I'm updating on how we're working through COVID at both the Corporate Parenting Board and both scrutiny meetings. It is one of our actions, particularly part of our improvement, but also part of our plans for working through COVID, and indeed our recovery plan when we get back to looking at recovery. So the first thing I would say is that social care workers, children's services are all working from home unless it's absolutely not possible to do so. So they're all working virtually. However, as part of that, virtual visits to children should now be the absolute exception. Children should be seen now face to face. If a child's going to be seen virtually, then that must be signed off by a manager. So we're very clear that now children must be seen face to face. One of the things that I would want to push on the most is the attendance of vulnerable children at school. We have a way of tracking, and what we do is that we get information from public health around children who are at school who have either COVID or who are self-isolating, and likewise for staff at school. We also have, when a vulnerable child is not in school, a direct line for schools to ring to ask, to tell us, really, to notify us that a vulnerable child is not in school without a valid reason for not being so. Those go through, as I said, to this direct line where a note is put on the child's file and information's passed to the social worker. The social worker will then use a bespoke tool that we have devised, not this in terms of RAG rating red and green. Then we update the safety plan, So I have done a bit of a test of this day because it was appropriate for another meeting that I've been at today. It does work. Our system is working. We also cross-reference with the spreadsheets of attendance from schools at the end of the week. I would say that what we've got in terms of attendance in school is not yet where I would want it to be. And I think we have a duty, really, as corporate parents and as indeed social workers, to push the attendance of vulnerable children at school. So, for example, I think particularly appropriate for this committee, 67.3% school, as of last week, if I'm understanding that, although Trevor might want to just correct me on that. Okay, so that's best part of 70%, but why aren't the other 30% in school? Now, there may be an absolutely valid reason why they're not, but I think that we have to be absolutely sure that they're not. The children who I would be most concerned about in terms of not being in school are children on child protection plans, and that's under 50% at the moment. So I am going to be asking social workers to make a particular effort. There has been a little bit of comeback in terms of that effort, actually, in that, there's been a little bit about why are social workers being so firm, so adamant in terms of vulnerable children being in school. I really make, and apologies if people don't think this is the right thing to say, but I think that it is absolutely appropriate for us to be as clear and as encouraging, not as far as forceful, but to make sure that our vulnerable children are in school, because we know that safety factor for them. I report regularly to a meeting called REACT, and that's a meeting between officials from the Department of Education, both social care and education around children being in school. They all are checking our figures around visits.
So sorry, so you keep going off. Could you start it? Could you?
Is Sue's sound intermittent for the rest of the board, or is it? Sue, maybe if you put your video camera off, please, much as we'd like to see you. Your sound is intermittent. Maybe that might help. Sometimes it does, please. Thanks, Sue.
Is that better? Is that better, colleagues?
Yes, thank you, Sue. It is for now. It keeps coming and going. Sometimes it's fine, and then sometimes we lose you. But we'll try like this for now, Sue. Thank you.
Apologies. So I was talking really about social workers, social care workers encouraging children into school as much as possible. I report to a meeting called REACT on a fortnightly basis. That's with representatives from the Department of Education, and they certainly hold us to account for children in school and for visits to children, and they compare us both regionally and with our statistical neighbours. So that's really where we are in terms of children in school. To say staffing, it's measured between 0 and 10% and 10 to 20% of staff who are unavailable. And we are certainly within the lower 0 to 10% in terms of staff in children's services who are available in terms of workforce, although our general sickness levels are really quite low. So apologies if you couldn't hear everything that we're saying. I think I've got a bit of a sore throat as well, so that won't help. But if there are any questions, I'd be really pleased to answer them.
Thank you for that, Sue. Sorry about your sore throat, and thank you for persisting despite a sore throat. Much appreciated. Has anyone any questions there for Sue? Janet, I'll write down the names. I can see Janet, Councillor Thompson, and Zafar, Councillor Udin, and Mary, Councillor Nugent. Okay, so I'll start. Is that Teresa? Okay.
Thank you, Chair. My question is to Sue is, when children are getting transported to the schools, has the people who are transporting them been vaccinated?
My understanding, Councillor Thompson, and I was talking about this to Rob this morning, that escorts, as it were, for children attending special school have been vaccinated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. It's Zafar, Councillor Udin.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, can I ask just two simple questions, please? Yeah. First of all, Sue mentioned the vulnerable children attending school. It's not compulsory, is it? Is it? I mean, I believe the government advises to do so where possible. Is that right? It's not compulsory.
It is a very strong expectation, Councillor Udin, that vulnerable children are in school, because that's where we know they are most safe. So I am absolutely adamant that a child should be in school unless there's a very, very good reason why not. That's the stance that we are clearly taking.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Is that okay?
Fine,
Zafar, yeah. I've got Mary, then I can see Jeanette Walker afterwards, Councillor Walker. Okay, thank you, Zafar.
Sorry, Chair,
have you got any questions, Zafar? Okay, sorry, off you go.
Yeah, sorry, so you mentioned about the visiting children, how often the social worker visit them? I mean, I know they're on the child protection. Sorry, if they're on child protection, obviously you got to do it monthly, I think, But in general, vulnerable children and so on, how often do we have to do they visit?
Well, it will be according to the needs of the child, Councillor Udin, but there are various standards by which children should be visited. So very clearly children who are looked after. There's quite a a plan in terms of in the first month, after the first month, and then you go to every 6 weeks, for example. So there are various standards under through which a child should be visited, but all in all it has to be around the needs of the child. I think the most important thing in terms of what I've been talking about really is that we must be seeing the children face to face now and seeing them on their own, and virtual visits and exceptionally only.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Udin. Thank you, Sue. Mary Nugent, Councillor Nugent.
Yes, could I just ask Sue, please? How do we handle a situation where we know children could be in a vulnerable position but are not attending school? I mean, that's just a reality for some of the situations I know about.
Okay, if they are allocated to a social worker, they are deemed as vulnerable. And therefore, we would be encouraging, and again, I would say strongly encouraging those children, the parents, to be sending those children to school.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. If they haven't got a social worker, then we probably wouldn't know about them in terms of sending them to school.
Yeah.
And of course, some children are working from home, do have remote learning. Some children of critical workers are in school, but I think that's probably not what you're talking about. But certainly,
no, a few situations I know about. I'm not sure of the details soon, but I do know they're not attending school under the circumstances of being vulnerable.
Okay, well, you're happy. If you want to discuss that offline, Councillor Nugent, then please do give me a call.
Okay, Sue.
That's a good idea. That's a good idea, Councillor Nugent. If you'd like to take that further, Sue will be able to look into it. Yes, outside of the meeting. Thank you. Councillor Walker, Jeanette.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Sue, one of the queries I've got is our teachers that are teaching the vulnerable children. I know that obviously they're limited in their class sizes at the moment because not all schools are open, as we all know. I'm just wondering, although I know that the teachers are actually doing lateral flow tests at the moment, I'm just wondering, when are we going to get round to actually ensuring that they too are vaccinated, because they are in touch with all these children from different backgrounds, and I'm just very concerned that that needs to be addressed as well. I mean, our vulnerable children are in those classes as well. So when is that going to happen?
Okay, I will answer a little bit and then I will hand over to Trevor, or who may know a little bit more about this than I do. My understanding is that none of our schools are closed. All of our schools are open. Can I see Trevor nodding there? I'm convinced that that is that none of our schools are closed. Yeah. I know that all staff in special schools have been vaccinated. That was carried out actually very expeditiously over one weekend in a very well organised way. And you're right about lateral flow testing. If I just hand over to Trevor, he'll be able to just go into the details of the vaccinations a little bit more.
Thank you, Trevor. We'll hand over.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Yeah, I think we would all agree in terms of the sentiment about vaccination, because we do think that it makes absolute sense for teachers to be vaccinated because of the vulnerable position that they're in. Government absolutely disagrees with that. So they are adamant that teachers will not jump the queue, and we will work through the 9 categories for vaccination which the government has published, and then after the 9 categories, the priority categories, are all vaccinated, it will then be the rest of the population, and teachers who don't fall within one of those 9 categories will be vaccinated along with the rest of the population when the priority groups have been done. So we have challenged that, and we repeatedly challenge that, as do local authorities across the country, because I think there's a very strong feeling that this isn't the right approach. The government's response really is, okay, if you prioritize teachers, if you move them up the queue, who is it that you want to move down the queue? Because somebody will have to come down, or some group will have to move down. And that obviously is a difficult and a political question to answer, but the sentiment of the importance of getting our teachers vaccinated, both in terms of keeping them safe and to reduce transfer in the community and cross-infection in the community is an important one, and we'll keep bashing away with DFE. I mean, well, it's not even just DFE and the government as a whole. It's, for whatever reason, they've decided they don't want to go down that route, and it's very frustrating. And there is another thing that kind of it's a side issue, but you can understand it. The teachers themselves are really anxious about this, and they feel very resentful. Many feel very resentful that they are not, their position isn't given any greater priority amongst the population. And certainly, if the government was to relent on this and to get the teachers vaccinated earlier, it would be a huge boost for morale and motivation in schools, and it would encourage teachers to really take it as seriously as possible. But at this stage, it seems that that's not going to be the case, and teachers aren't going to have any priority treatment.
Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Walker?
Yes, please. I'm just getting used to this laptop. Yes, please. One of the things I'm concerned about is the fact that I know for a fact that from teachers I know that have actually had to isolate because there's been twice now in the particular school in my own area. I mean, I don't like to personalise it as such, but knowing that this is happening, it won't be unusual that they've had to actually close classrooms up because the teachers have then had to self-isolate because of cases of COVID testing positive in their classrooms. So those children then are all isolated and put in quarantine. Teachers are put in quarantine, and it increases that anxiety as well, and also for the children and the parents, etc. So I think perhaps many of the councils, although the councils are maybe lobbying general government, I think perhaps some of those schools that are run by the different organisations as private academies, and some of our children go to those schools, obviously. What I'd like to see is those organisations that run the academies actually lobbying government as well. Perhaps they could be asked to do that. So not just the local councils lobbying the government, but also the different organisations that run our academies. So perhaps that might be another way of getting onto them. But I can see your point about which group do they do next. But I think when you consider that children are passing it along and they know that for a fact, and our vulnerable children are put in positions like they are, I really do believe that is something that needs to be addressed by this government. And you've answered my questions quite suitably, though. Thank you, Sue, and thank you, Trevor. But that's just my own personal feeling at the moment, but thank you.
Just to clarify, just to sort of reinforce that the authorities across the North East are all of a similar mind and are experiencing the same issues. And it is a regular feature of discussion at every meeting that we have with teachers. And I know that best endeavours are still not getting us where we need to, but things are certainly being pushed.
It's just to finish that point off
Dave,
about the
off you go, Trevor.
Sorry, yeah, I was just picking up on that point about the academy trusts. They are lobbying, as are the teaching unions, who are also very vocal, as you'd imagine, in this area. So there is a lot of pressure being applied to government to look at the teacher vaccination issue. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Thank you, Trevor. Councillor Thompson, Janet?
Yeah, just to reinforce the importance of teachers getting vaccinated. I've seen 2 cases where the children have caught COVID off a teacher, and they've been isolated, and then the child has actually given it to the father, who's ended up really poorly. So it's very important that these teachers get the vaccination. Because if they don't and it's passed on, then the whole class has got to isolate for 10 days. And that's, less time that they're going to be spending at school. So I would fully support teachers getting vaccinated.
Thank you. So we can ask if anyone we know, such as Trevor or Sue, to keep lobbying on this. And I'm sure, as Trevor says, the teachers' unions, the academies, there's a big push. But for the moment, it doesn't look like it's having any particular success. Last question then, Mary.
Yeah, could I just, I hope I know I'm right, but I think people might be aware of it, that teachers and staff working with special needs children in secondary schools have been vaccinated. Is that common knowledge? That's what I'm asking. I know they are with the very young special needs, but in secondary school.
Okay, is that for Trevor? That question, please, Trevor.
Yeah, so all of the teachers in our special schools have been vaccinated, and we were able to. I mean, that was largely down to Sue and Rob Brown pushing that very hard, really, to make the point that teachers who are teaching in special schools aren't just teaching; they are performing a caring function.
That's right.
And therefore, because they're caring and not just teaching, then that pushes them up the order of priority. So that has happened, and which was great. You know, that was a really positive step. And the schools, all of the schools, the education community really appreciated the fact that the authority had driven that hard. But yeah, we'd like to roll that out to obviously to all of the teachers and all of the schools.
Thank you, Trevor.
Thank you. Councillor Walker. You need to unmute your mic.
I know. I couldn't. It wouldn't work. Sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'd like to maybe just make a point there. It might be special schools that have been vaccinated, but teachers who are teaching special needs in ordinary schools have not been vaccinated. Because that's one of the areas that I know about, because I know teachers who are actually teaching special needs children in school that is quite very, very good for them, and she's nowhere near getting vaccinated. So it might be a little bit distorted. Yes, it's good to see that the special schools are in that role and they have been vaccinated, and I'm so pleased to hear that. However, teachers who ordinarily teach special needs children in schools, as per se in your local neighbourhoods, are not being vaccinated. So I think I would like to re-emphasise that point. Thank you.
Yeah. It's an important point, actually, because you're absolutely right. There are a number of children who have high levels of need who are attending mainstream schools. So they're in mainstream schools and they may be bottle fed and so tube fed rather, and have a variety of other needs which require a high level of care to be delivered by the teaching staff. And unfortunately, those teachers are not able to get vaccinated, even though we've tried very hard to make that point. Government have said no, they will not be vaccinated and they'll be turned away from vaccination centres if they turn up. So yes, it's a very important point.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Jeanette. Councillor Nugent, and then Councillor Uddin. Thank you.
Could I just add that my daughter works with special needs. She is getting vaccinated tomorrow. And that is a mainstream secondary school. But it is, as Trevor said, it's a special needs area.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Nugent.
Thank you.
Councillor Uddin.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, can I just ask, are foster carers getting vaccinated? All foster carers, young and old. Sorry.
Is that for Sue, please? Sue, please.
Sue, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Rachel, would you answer Councillor Uddin, please? Thank you.
Yes, Chair. Foster carers have been prioritised for vaccinations, and the appointments started to go out a week past Thursday. So those appointments are happening, and foster carers are being vaccinated. Sue and I had a meeting earlier this week with a group of foster carers who were reporting that the process had been very efficient and they were starting to get the vaccination. So yes.
Councillor Udin, then I'll bring in Mr. Snowball. Councillor Udin.
So, yeah, can I just also include, are they vaccinating this family, the adult family members in the household, or just the foster carers? So if a foster carer have the adult family member who supports them, are they getting vaccinated as well?
The carers are being the carers are being vaccinated. So those who undertake a caring role in the household, Councillor Udin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, is that clear?
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's clear, isn't it now? So, Mr. Snowball, Carl?
Yeah, just to confirm, really, as a foster carer, my wife and I were vaccinated just the other week. We took the call from NHS, if you like, and went down to the hospital and got vaccinated. So it is happening. I know some foster carers took upon themselves to ring and make appointments, and were accommodated and got in quickly, if you like. But yes, it's certainly on a rollout.
Thank you for that confirmation. Could we also thank as a group Sue and the team for doing the work that they did in enabling the staff in special schools to get their vaccination in a timely way? I think that was a great effort, and thank you. I'm glad that that's happened. It must be very reassuring to all concerned. Thank you. So if that's all the questions for Sue, I think it is, we can move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the update from Cleveland Police. We're going to talk about the Philharmina Protocol this afternoon, and we've got Detective Chief Inspector Deb Fenney, who's going to provide this update to the board on the Philharmina Protocol. Is that okay, Deb?
Yes, good afternoon. Apologies
Thank
that Sean couldn't be here. Sean's obviously leading on the Philharmina Protocol. He was with us last meeting, but he couldn't be here this afternoon, so he's provided me a bit of update. Philharmina Protocol went live across the 4 local authorities in January of this year. They're still in the process of recruiting 2 missing coordinators who will drive and promote the Philharmina Protocol across the 4 local authorities, not just Middlesbrough. As he explained last time, the Philharmina Protocol is now care homes. It's more on the high risk missing from homes that we have, or the repeat missing from homes, try and look at problem solving and react as expeditiously as we can when a child goes missing from home. Information's there on localities, people they visit, family members, etc. So it can go straight into our force control room, and our staff can be deployed as quickly as possible rather than having to be deployed to the care home to collate the details. So it's in process. We're hoping to recruit the missing from home coordinators relatively soon, and then the plans will be put in place for where those will be situated within the organisation. Obviously, we're aware that we do have matches across the T's as well, so ideally they would be situated in there to work with our partners to ensure a coordinated response when we're looking at the missing from homes and the problem solving around them. So that's pretty much where we are at the minute. I can't give you a timescale on the coordinators because we simply don't have one at present, but hopefully come the next meeting we'll have a little bit more around when that's likely to be in place. But the Philharmina Protocol is in place. We haven't got any findings around how it's working exactly yet that I can present to you either. But again, it's something that we can perhaps bring forward to the next meeting if that's useful.
Yeah, that'd be really useful, actually. Thanks, Deb. Has anyone any questions on this? Can I ask, what evidence have we got so far in terms of numbers or statistics on this? Have we got any historic evidence that we're using as a baseline?
I haven't got anything to hand, Chair, but what I can do is I can speak with Sean. Sadly, I can say he couldn't be here and it's his, he's the lead on it, but I can see what information we can collate for you to see how effective it has been since implementation in comparison to how effective or ineffective we were prior to that time.
Yes, that's exactly right. That'd be really helpful, I think, to have that overview of where we're at. And then in the future, as we move forward, we'll be able to keep having updates about the progress and hopefully how we address and tackle the issue and make improvements to the service. Thanks very much. That'd be really good. I saw a hand there. I think it was, did I not see a hand?
Yes,
it's Teresa.
It's me, yes.
Teresa, there it is, Teresa. Thank you.
Could I just ask Would it be possible, you might have done it already, to send the protocol round the people on the panel, and also the information that the chair's just asked for, an update? Because it would be good if we all got that information. So next meeting, we know what the young man's talking about.
Yeah, so just for clarity then, you'd all like the protocol and obviously the outline, the terms of reference around what it's actually there to do and what the objectives are. And if we can provide a bit of a data set around how effective it's been since it's come into play in comparison to how effective we were previously.
Yeah, it would be get an update every so often, so we know whether it's working or not. Hopefully it will be.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
thank
that's
you.
absolutely right. That would be great if we could see that. Yes.
Yeah.
Have we? Could I just ask? You know, it might be. Did we really have enormous concerns? We were very seriously worried about this issue before we got involved with the Philharmina Protocol.
I think missing children's always been an issue, and I think the more we look at missing children and those that are in local authority care, especially that we worry about exploitation, criminal behaviour. So yes, I'd say it's always been an issue. How big of an issue?
That was my question. How big of an issue on a scale of 1 to 10? How worried should we be? I mean, you don't have to answer that, but that was just sort of the background thinking. Just where we stand. So when we get the data next time, that would be helpful to give us an insight into that particular concern.
Yeah. I will try and provide some data. I'll speak with Sean, but with some context behind, because I know sometimes figures don't mean a great deal, so we'll try and put some context behind the figures.
Thank you very much. That'd be really helpful, I think. Are there any more questions there on this item? Okay, thank you. So on that note, we will move to item 6, which is the Voice of the Child participation update from Laurie, aren't we, on behalf of the Member of the Youth Parliament and the Deputy, and then we're going to go to Beth. Is that right? I think that's the way we're going to do it. That's right, Beth, isn't it? That's what we agreed. So
Yeah,
could we hand over to... Thank you. Could we hand over to Laurie now, please, to talk about the Youth Parliament representatives? Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. Apologies that the girls can't be here today, but Muskan's internet's gone off, so she's getting that fixed currently as we speak, so she can't be here, and Batul's got some schoolwork to catch up on. Very busy time for them, and I don't envy the situations at all. So just an update, and am I allowed to share my screen?
Yes, of course, please do so.
Thank you. So I do have a blog post to show. Let me just find it. Here we go. Bear with me while it's loading. But yeah, we are now 2 meetings deep inside of our Middlesbrough Youth Council. And this blog post I'm about to share now is an update from Batul of how the first meeting went. So can you see the screen?
Yeah, it's just loaded now.
Yes, thank you. We can. Yes, that's great. Thank you. We recognise this little logo in person. Yes, from last time.
There she is. So that's Batul's little graphic, because she's a little bit shy about getting her face, you know, a real picture on there. So those were created. So this is as follows. This is her blog post. So she says, "Hi everyone, I'm Batul, and recently alongside the Member of Youth Parliament, which is Muskan, and Middlesbrough Council, we've launched our very own Youth Council. We had the launch meeting on the 14th of January and had 22 wonderful attendees. During the launch, we explained the aims of the Youth Council and got to know a bit about each other and how everyone would like the Youth Council to be run. It's important for us to be flexible around other young people's timetable, since we understand how hectic life can be. We also played a Kahoot quiz, which became slightly competitive but fun nonetheless. Our agenda for the next session is to elucidate, and that word I didn't even know what it meant, so I had to look that up. So that tells you about the level of intelligence we're dealing with here. To elucidate to everyone the components of a meeting, so the chair, minute taker, and a blogger, and to also collate what members' priorities are. So this way we can hopefully have a vote and decide what to campaign about and focus on for the future." She says, "I can't wait." So I'll stop sharing that for the moment. So that was how Batul felt after the meeting. during that meeting, the young people heard a little bit about the roles. We're deciding to give 3 roles, which is the chair, the minute taker, and the blogger, or our influencer role, which basically advertises the council, the youth council, to other young people and lets them know what we've been up to. And in the meeting that we've just had, excuse me, we had the minute taker actually, Batul took the minutes for that meeting and it went really well. We had Muskan as the chair as well. So it's getting into that youth-led stage now. And the young people are really intelligent, they're really keen and really excited. And if I'm just going to share my screen again to show you some of the impact that it's having. So we've managed to assess some impact by basically social media posts. Young people are posted on social media about how they're feeling about the youth council, and it's really good for us to see, and it's really heartwarming, if I'm honest. So if you can please share.
It's just we're sharing now, Laurie, but you've gone a little bit crackly.
Oh, okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
we can now. Thank you very much. That's lovely.
So, thank you. So this is one of our young people called Phoebe. She's given permission for us to share this today, and she knows this is being recorded as well. So this is Phoebe, and this is a dressed up for the youth council meeting. And underneath, she's written a lovely little comment. She's put, "Well, this week's been great. I've worked a lot, read a lot, watched a lot of TV, and had some real fun. I had my second council meeting on Thursday, which was every bit as good as the first, and I met some amazing new people and made some really good friends." So, and she also put that I've made my first real speech, which went well, thank goodness, and I had a really good time. So in that the second meeting, young people were invited to speak about why they wanted the roles and prepare like a little speech, kind of as why they want to be a chair or a minute taker, for example. And Phoebe's was great, and it's lovely to get feedback like that because, we know we're doing something right. We know young people are appreciating the opportunity. And if I scroll down, here's another picture of Phoebe, one of the meetings. This was from the first meeting. So she put, "This week's been so amazing. Started off being accepted into sixth form, and then I found out I'd gotten into the youth council, and we had our first meeting, which was amazing. This picture was taken just before it. I've had a great week and made some amazing new friends. 2021 is looking up." I just thought that was so lovely because in terms of how young people in their mental health, there's a bit of a risk going on at the moment. I think we can all acknowledge that. And it's lovely to hear that, this is having a big effect on young people and especially Phoebe. And then finally, we move on to a tweet. This is Shane. He's in our youth council as well. And he's put, this was just before the first meeting, actually, he's put, "It's going to be great. So glad." This was in response to Muskan, by the way, a member of Youth Parliament. He's put, "It's going to be great. I'm so glad you and your deputy member of Youth Parliament have been able to do this for our town. And most importantly, young people in our town. And we can't wait. I can't wait to start getting involved." So that was a little bit of I just wanted to share that feedback with you all, really, to let you know how things are going, and to let you know the positive feedback that we're getting from the young people.
Thank you very much, Laurie, for that. That's very encouraging and very makes us very heartwarming, isn't it, to think that that it's been met with such enthusiasm and that people are getting on board and getting engaged. It'd be interesting to know as we progress how many more people get involved and how the numbers increase, and more feedback from a wider variety of young people would be good.
Yes,
So
Chair, definitely.
I think we could look at that as progression in the future. I can see Councillor Higgins. Teresa has a hand up.
Thank you for that presentation. It was lovely, absolutely lovely. And to see that 20 young people started to go to that meeting, it's really, really encouraging. So thank you very much for all the hard work. And can somebody thank the youngsters and see if we can get a few invites to go and see how it works? They might.
That'd be a great idea if we could be invited. Yes.
You're never too old to learn, and I'm sure they'll learn us quite a bit.
Never too old to be a youth member, are you, or involved in a youth thing?
Oh, I think that's going a bit far, Alma.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I take that back. But anyway, it'd be lovely to be invited, and you know, when we're not in COVID, to get to know people for real, really, that'd be fantastic. And maybe to coach people or support them or give them some insights if we could with them and share experiences and see what they've got to say. It's a really direct way of getting connected to the voice of the child, isn't it? So that's how
that would be wonderful. I think they'd really appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you.
Please invite us. Please invite some of the youth in this meeting to the next meeting. That'd be good.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great, thank you. You need laugh, Bethany, just because you're on the younger age of the spectrum. So it's over to you now, Beth, isn't it? To tell us about. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. I'll just share my screen. I'll just give us a little bit presentation around the wider participation activity. I've kept it short this time. People will be pleased to know. So the purpose of this presentation is to update the Corporate Parenting Board on participation activity across children's services. And it has been a standing agenda item for some time now, as we think it's really useful for everybody to be informed of all of the activity that's happening and how to potentially be involved. So I will elaborate a little bit more about the Middlesbrough Youth Council. As Laurie mentioned, we had 22 young people attending the initial launch, and we've had a meeting since then, which went really, really well. The group have consulted on their key focus areas. So the key focus areas the group have voted on are a curriculum for life, how to tackle child poverty, increase racial awareness in the curriculum, free university, and to take action on the climate energy. And the group have agreed that meetings would take place every 3 weeks. Young people will be allocated specific roles to support the group, and that these will be decided by an election process. We feel like it's really important to make sure that the group is youth-led and not staff-led. So that's how we're going to move, as Laurie said, towards that now, and it's well on its way, which is great. We have also been looking at wider partnership engagement opportunities with not just the Youth Council, but obviously our Children in Care Council, our care leavers and other young people. And we are contacting those other young people through social media, Middlesbrough Children Matter website, and our Twitter and Instagram. So Cleveland Police Youth Commission have scheduled a series of workshops and have invited our young people along. So just a couple of the themes are hate crime and online crime, youth activities and preventing offending, and mental health awareness. And I know as well, Joe Russell, who I think is in this meeting, also has scheduled a sexual health focus group. So we're looking at how we can work more with our young people to help improve the sexual health services across Middlesbrough. Our engagement groups, our mini Children in Care Council, we've still got 5 members. We met with them last night and they're really excited about the snow. And they were just talking around a little bit about the challenges of school. 2 of them were in school and the rest weren't because of some isolation. So it's really difficult for them. But I think the impact of us keeping in touch with them and keeping in close contact is really, really good for them, because it breaks away from, you know, the standard school WebEx and video calls, and it gives us a little bit of time to have fun with them and touch base with them. Our Children in Care Council, as you know, we've struggled to sort of recruit to that, but our care leavers have said they're going to take a role this year, and they're going to try and you know, facilitate the groups themselves. So they're looking to plan those to take place in March, because the original date we had in December, I don't know whether it was too close to Christmas or what, but that was actually not successful. So our care leavers, one of their focuses this year is to really push the Children in Care Council and recruitment. And they want to take a real stand with that one. And one of our members, Tia, is creating a presentation that we can create a little bit of a recruitment video for that. So again, our Care Leavers Forum, we've got 6 active members, and we are meeting weekly still and speaking to them regularly, because obviously during COVID and everything, things have been increasingly difficult for our young people, and we are just trying to touch base with them and keep things new and exciting as much as we can. So the recent tasks that we've had the groups involved in is the recruitment of the participation officer, supporting the bid for the digital resilience online safety funding, identifying the key priorities for 2021, and then supporting our care leavers during COVID. So we are currently organising a hug in a mug to be sent to all of our care leavers with a nice message, just to let all the care leavers know that our young people are here, everyone's together, and they're not alone in this difficult time. So that's really nice, and it's been really fun for them to do. Wider Children's Services Communications, so we ran something called Joyful January. Laurie is responsible for these fantastic graphics here. So basically what it was is we asked staff to identify the achievements of our looked after children and care leavers, and we promoted it across the council. So we had internal emails going out, we had posts all over social media, and we really just wanted to share our successes of our looked after children and our care leavers. We think it went really, really well. And obviously January is sometimes a bit of a miserable time for people. So we think this was really, really fitting at this time of year, and it was great. In terms of the participation team, so we've got some updates of how, a little bit of a restructure. So the participation officer has been recruited and Marcus is going to start in March 2021. We've got a communications and engagement officer role and they will be interviewed in February. The successful candidate will support the Middlesbrough Children Matter Vision, wider children's services, communications and the engagement groups in Middlesbrough. The Voice of the Child manager role will be up for recruitment in February 2021. So that's exciting, and we're looking at how we can, use these 3 different people to work on wider work streams. So we've identified some areas that we think will be really, really good and really strong at promoting Voice of the Child within our frontline services. For example, the team will be working alongside our practice lead, Charlotte, to embed Voice of the Child, voice of children and young people on the front line, and working, one-to-one with social workers and going out and meeting young people. The team will also be working in partnership with our internal communications team to ensure that a joint-up approach to communications to all children's services, staff and families is there. And a participation champion will be identified in the SEND service to lead on a work plan. So the idea is to increase engagement of children and young people in their education, health and care plans and their SEND support and independence plans. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much for that, Beth. Very informative, and I think we get a good overview there of what's going on. There's a lot of activities going on. I love the idea that the key focus area for the young people are outward looking, aren't they? They seem to be demonstrating a great social consciousness and conscience, and they're very aware of their responsibilities as citizens, I think. So I was very impressed by the key areas that they identified. Teresa? What did you say? Something on that, Beth? Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, I think that's, we were really impressed as well, myself and Laurie, because they're great, and obviously they're speaking to their peers and they're consulting with all their peers and people on social media, and they're really trying to be that voice of young people in Middlesbrough. They're not just using their own agendas, and it's fantastic to see.
That's right. It's very much outward looking, isn't it? It's looking towards, having a social conscience and being aware of the issues, confronting ourselves locally and on the world stage, really, climate change and things like that. So I can see Councillor Higgins and Councillor Walker. Councillor Higgins, please.
Yes, I just thank Bethany for all the hard work. I mean, we've come a long way, absolutely a long way. And it's so good to hear what's happening now, and that's because of you and the staff and also the young people, because you and your staff have made them feel special, and that's why we're moving on as like we are. So it's absolutely great, and all I can say is a big thank you to you and your staff and to the young people. We've got nothing to worry about in Middlesbrough with the youngsters coming through who are that engaged in with their own community. So thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Yeah, participation has moved forward, and it's great. The team's worked extremely hard, especially throughout COVID and stuff. So yeah, appreciate that, Teresa. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Welcome to Mika. I see she's joined us now. Welcome. Hi there. We're just going to have it's okay. We're going to have Jeanette's question now to Bethany.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that, Bethany. I mean, it's been a hard slog, hasn't it, really, getting it all together and getting it up and running. And I think it has been difficult. And of course, in this really unprecedented time, it's been even more difficult for you all. I'd like to congratulate you on everything that's happened and congratulate the young people, because it's been fantastic. One of the things I'm interested in, and the question I want to ask is, are they actually involved in the recruitment process for the officers that you're asking for? And I'm wondering whether they're actually involved in not just the recruitment process regarding the advert of what they want, but whether they're involved in interviews in any way and what they want to express and get from those people who are involved in the youth parliament. So are they actually involved or not?
Yeah, so do you mean are our young people involved in the interviews of officers?
Yes.
Yeah, so we do. We have our care leavers forum. They're involved in writing the job descriptions that go out and the adverts, and then we have a staff panel that interviews the young people. Then we have the officers, and then we have a young persons panel. And I can tell you, the young persons panel is very intense. Rachel, I think you'd be able to back me up on that one. But yeah, they fully have full power. I just sit there, turn my camera off, and I let them get on with it. Very intense questions, and they make sure that they're fully happy with everything. And then afterwards, we meet and go through all of the scores, and we have a discussion to make sure they fully understand everything, and that they're scoring everybody to like that they're happy with the scores, and that yeah, they are fully involved from the application to the interview.
Yeah,
thank you very much. I bet you're good for that answer, aren't you, Jeanette? Rachel wants to come in since she's been through that process. She's still marked from it.
It was just to reinforce what Bethany's saying, really. You know, when I was appointed permanently in this role, I was interviewed by a young people's panel. It was a really rigorous process, and they asked me some very powerful searching questions, which I think they thought about really carefully. So yeah, it was a good experience. It's an important experience, and staff at all levels are interviewed by the young people's panel.
That's excellent to know, and thank you for training people so well, the young people so well, Bethany. It is, however, a bit sad today because I don't know if you noticed when Bethany, what was the third role that we were recruiting to now? Voice of the child. Go on, you say it then. Voice of the child management.
Yeah, my role, unfortunately.
And that is because I'm sad to say that Bethany's going to leave that role and move on to pastures new. So on behalf of everyone, we'd like to wish you every success in your future plans, Bethany.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you,
must say, we're
appreciate
very sad that you're going to be leaving us. Maybe we could give her a round of applause, even with the mute on.
Thanks, everyone. They make me cry.
Oh, well, you'll be sadly missed, Bethany, and you can't cry because you're going to do Spotlight 2 in a minute. So
I know, I haven't got a chance to cry.
You haven't got a chance to cry. But thanks ever so, honestly, they are heartfelt, sincere thanks on behalf of us all. And we definitely, you know, we have so much evidence of the marvellous work you've done over the years. So thank you for that.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Bethany. So we will move on to the next item, which is the
Chair. Sorry, Chair. I think Mika Smiles wished to make a comment.
Oh, did you, Mika? That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, it was just on the young person's interview panel. I think that sounds absolutely brilliant. And I was just wondering, even if it was like a mock session, if we could maybe like have an interview filmed and put that on social media, because I think that it's really interesting that process takes place.
Yeah, that would be really good. And it might encourage other young people to get involved. Yeah.
That's good, that.
Thank you. We'll take that forward then if we can, won't we? And good idea. Thank you for that. Sorry, Mika, I nearly missed it. So if we look at the next item on the agenda, the MALAP Spotlight Report, we're going to have 2 Spotlight reports working concurrently. The one that I'm working on, and I did submit a draft version of my report, until it came to my attention that as well as my interviewing chairs of corporate parenting boards across the country, which have been deemed to be good to outstanding, it might also be interesting to talk to chairs of corporate parenting boards where they are in a similar position on the journey to improvement as we are. So Sue came up with 2 local authorities, one Wakefield and one Bradford, and Sue has now made contact with the authorities concerned, and I have now made contact with the chairs of the corporate parenting boards in both Wakefield and Bradford. And so I'm now going to talk to these 2 people and see if we can get more insights from their point of view of being in a similar position as we are. And the improvement officer, Stuart Smith, works for, is it Wakefield or Bradford, Sue? The same person we have works for one of those authorities. So it'll be good to compare notes with authorities that are similar to us, and also to closely examine many of the ideas that I've got from talking to authorities that are considered good or outstanding. So because I've decided to extend the research, it's a bit longer watch this space till I've done these other interviews now. So thank you, Sue, for that extended idea. And I think I mentioned last time that the different authorities I've spoken to are all keen to develop a chair of corporate parenting board network, so we can continue to share ideas in a way that will be constructive and helpful for all of us going forward. So I'm now going to move on to Bethany again, who's having to.
Chair, can I just say that
yes,
Stuart Smith. Stuart Smith Wakefield. So it is a threesome. Wakefield. So it is everywhere.
Yep. Thank you, Sue. So I think that's going to be really interesting to move forward all together, hopefully, and it'll be mutual support, mutual sharing of ideas across a range of different local authorities. So now it's we're going to talk about Spotlight 2, which we're hoping to launch quite soon. Bethany has been working on this, and we've talked about this quite a lot. So Bethany is going to present this. At the end of this presentation, she has several slides. We've got some suggestions, and then we can have a very brief discussion about it if there is anything to say. But I'll let Bethany present it, and then we'll talk a little bit further. Thank you, Bethany.
Thanks, Chair. If you do have anything to add, please just jump in, Rachel and Chair and Councillor Hilary. Sorry, I'm just sharing my screen. Just let me know when you can see.
That's fine now, Beth.
Brilliant.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so this presentation is to propose a spotlight report that me and Rachel and Councillor Hilary have been discussing. So the aim of this approach is so that the Corporate Parenting Board can show Middlesbrough children that they matter. So the Corporate Parenting Board has got 6 focus areas. So your home, your family and friends, your education, your adult life, your health and wellbeing, and your voice and influence. And our proposal is that each board member is allocated to a specific guiding principle and is responsible for leading in that area. So the board member or members will make a pledge to support that specific area for 6 months. And each member will create a video which will act as a pledge. And this will include what their guiding principle is, what this means for children and young people, what their pledge is for the next 6 months, and how this will impact on the lives of children and young people. So the next steps for this would be an initial meeting for all councillors who are committed to supporting this work. It'll be organised by Susie. And this meeting will provide a little bit more information about the role and what it involves. Councillors will be asked to express their interest in 2 areas, and some councillors, me and Alma were talking earlier, and we said that some councillors may be able to work together as they might complement each other in this role. Council officers will work alongside the councillors and lead members to create measurable outcomes for the area and monitor progress. And the spotlight reports will be delivered at scheduled meetings throughout the year, so they have enough time on each corporate parenting agenda to be discussed thoroughly and the impact can be measured properly. Do you have anything you would like to add to that, Alma? I just kept it really short and sweet.
Yes, thank you. I just think maybe
questions.
where it says the next step, an initial meeting of all councillors on the Corporate Parenting Board, that meant, didn't it? Not all councillors,
yeah.
all councillors. Yeah. Maybe that might be my fault that I misled us on the wording. So actually thinking about that, it may be that if we wanted to invite some of the councillors who are interested in that particular area or who have some expertise, we are not being exclusive, we are being inclusive to get people involved. After all, we are all corporate parents, whether we're on the Corporate Parenting Board or not. So, all councillors may be interpreted loosely, but then quite specifically. Did you have that last slide, Beth, about the next steps?
Sorry, did you want me to reshare the slide? Or do you want me to
the slide where we have the grid, the slide with the table on and the grid. Do you want to do that one now, please? Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, can you see that now?
Yes, we can see that one now, Beth. And there's a bit underneath. Is it 2 more slides we've got?
So there's just the next steps there. So
right.
So the idea was for each guiding principle to have a lead councillor or 2 linked to it, a pledge that would be made from those councillors. They would all get a date that their pledge will be reviewed and their spotlight report will be reviewed, and there will be a key focus on the outcomes for children and young people. And again, just to highlight the next steps, so councillors to express their interest in 2 areas. Councillors can choose to work together. An initial meeting, for all councillors committed to supporting the specific principle, and that will provide more insight on the role. Council officers will be committed to the lead member and will help prepare their presentations. and council officers will work alongside the lead members to create measurable outcomes for the area and monitor progress. And then the spotlight reports will be delivered at scheduled meetings throughout the year. Is that okay, Elma?
Beth. That's absolutely fine. Thank you. Yes, that's it as we described, and thank you for all your support in providing this spotlight too. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, but what we could do is to consider this in greater detail, as it says on the first thing to do, might be to set up a little mini meeting of the councillors, elected members on this group, to talk about this in a bit more detail and thrash out a few ideas. And if elected members would like to send to Susie Blood 2 areas that they would like to consider, being involved with. I say 2 because maybe everyone will go for one of the 6 areas and then we'll be a bit stuck. So if everyone would give 2 areas that they wouldn't mind being involved with, then we could sort it out from there. Then we could convene a little mini meeting and decide on a sort of more detailed plan with some timelines in and some ways of working and share ideas together. And we'll invite some officers as well who'd like to help us develop the ideas more fully, as Bethany showed us on the slides. Officers that might like to help us monitor, think about progress, getting contacts created. Beth, I'll bring you in here, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to say, as part of the work that we did around developing the guiding principles for the corporate parenting strategy, we worked with young people from the Care Leavers Forum. So as part of this spotlight report work, if we had a lead member identified, a council officer, and then a young person that could help support lead this as well. So we would work, together, and like I said, all the council officers will provide support throughout for the members and the young people. So it's a really exciting opportunity.
It's really exciting, and it'll be great to work with young people and directly have the impact of the voice of the child in our deliberations and thinking. So is everyone smiling enthusiastically at me? Teresa's good. Teresa, would you like to add something? And Mary too. Teresa, then Mary. Yeah. Thanks, Teresa.
I was just wondering, I think it'd be a good idea to send out a grid and all the different things that people could help with, so they can pick and remind them that it's a good idea. So could we please get that sent to all the councillors on the committee?
Yeah, all the corporate parenting board councillors. That's an excellent idea, Teresa, please. So Beth, that would be fine, wouldn't it, to remind people of what we've said? I know there's quite a lot of information that Beth shared there. It took us several meetings to get it all sorted. Yeah. We're used to it now, so it might have gone rather quickly because it's quite familiar to us, but to other people, obviously, you might need some time to digest that information and to think about it. Thank you. Mary, would you like to add something there? Thank you, Mary. Please unmute that.
Oh, I'm gone. Can you hear me, Alma?
Yes, Mary, that's absolutely fine.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I'm back again. Thank you, Bethany. I think it's a wonderful idea, Alma. Perhaps we could have a little bit, as Teresa said, maybe a little bit more information on it. But I think it's a wonderful idea. Yeah. And I hope we'll be able to work with it to progress it.
Thank you very much, okay. Mary. Thank you, Mary. Thanks. We look forward to that. Has any other person got an idea there that they'd like to? Because we can have a mini meeting and we can progress the ideas within that. That's fine.
That's fine.
Carolyn, Zafar, I'm looking round for more names there. It's a bit quiet. It's a bit unusual this afternoon, but I'll take that as enthusiastic support. Thank you.
Sue wants to speak.
Yes, I can see Sue now. Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
Cass, I wondered as it is such a great idea, really. And councillors think that my interest and on the report.
So could you just put your camera off, please? I can't hear you very well. Sorry. Thanks, Sue. Could you start again, please? Sorry, we couldn't quite hear.
Okay. Just one in okay, promoting corporate parents. It might be something that parents be some towels and be some maybe that's not, you don't want to do that quite. Maybe it's a hook because it's quite now. That idea.
We couldn't quite hear you, Sue, but am I right in maybe gleaning from what you said that you think we could include other councillors at a later stage? I think that's what you were expressing. Is that correct, Sue?
Yes, it's a good hook, I think, and maybe it would excite other councillors to get more into corporate parenting.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, that's a great idea in that respect. Yes, so we can think about developing that idea further and involving more people. Absolutely. Thanks, Sue. That's great. So,
Chair, sorry, it's Caroline. I've just got a message from Susie to say that obviously she'll send it out to all councillors along with the themes and a copy of the report to see if we can generate some interest, and then get back to you with that, if that's okay, Chair.
That's fine. That's exactly what we'd hoped for. Yes, that's carrying through the ideas of Mary and Teresa thinking about what we need to do next. So I think then that we can move on to the next item of the agenda, which is Vicky with her report from Adoption Tees Valley. That's right, isn't it? I'm just getting that up here. So would you like to give us your report, please, Vicky? And then shall we take questions at the end of it? And then so if you've got any questions, just make a note and we'll take questions at the end, I think. Is that better, Vicky, so we don't miss people's hands, etc.? Thanks very much, Vicky. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can you hear me okay? Is that
absolutely
all right?
Fine. Yes, you're absolutely good. Clear. Lovely. Thank you.
I'm just wanting to double check that councillors and members of the Corporate Parenting Board have had a copy of the biannual report circulated in advance. I'm getting some nods, so that's great. Thank you very much. It always feels by the time I get to corporate parenting boards around the Tees Valley that the report is already out of date. I already now have my Q3 data coming in, and so we're another 12 weeks on from where we were when I actually wrote this report. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, rather than go through it page by page, I just thought I would talk through some of the kind of key issues, some of the key challenges, and some of the ways that we've dealt with some of those challenges over this kind of first 6-month period of the year, which of course, as everybody is talking about, has been that period of COVID. And it was a very challenging first 6 months of the year in some respects, although as we rolled up towards the end of Q2 and started to look at how we'd done, we actually discovered that we'd managed some of those challenges quite well. Some of the challenges, some of the areas were not so well managed, but in terms of the progress for children being adopted across Tees Valley, we'd actually done better than the corresponding period in the previous year. So that has actually gone really well. I just thought I'd just talk a little bit about about COVID and about some of the things that we needed to think about and some of the things that it was important that we actually reflected on and adjusted in order to meet some of the challenges and some of the requirements that the government set out for us. We weren't able to, we quite quickly made a decision that because of COVID, obviously the national pandemic and the imperative to stop people generally moving around the country, that really had an impact on adoption. And we worked really closely with the regional adoption agency heads of service. So we worked very collectively across the country, and we were able to kind of quite quickly come together and talk about how we were going to manage this. In Tees Valley, in a very similar way to adoption agencies across the country, we decided that we weren't going to move children. Certainly in the early stages of lockdown, we felt that that wasn't the right thing to do. But what we were going to do was continue to progress children's care plans and matches to panel. And that's what we did. And that's how we managed things in the very early stages. But we did work across the Tees Valley. We worked together with the adoption lead officers who are in all of our local authorities. At that time, it was Stuart Williams. It's now Paula Jemson who's here today. I can see Paula here today. And we looked at how we were going to actually manage the business and how we were going to think about moving children on to their adoptive placements. And one of the things we decided was that we would do quite an intensive risk assessment that was around everybody who would be involved in that plan for the child to move on. And that would include the foster carers and therefore the fostering service. It would include the child themselves. It would include the adoptive parents and anybody who was in their family. And then also all workers as well. We felt it was really important to think about the safety of workers, and a plan would be devised in each and every case about how that child could safely move on and what arrangements we needed to make. That served us quite well, actually. And once we agreed that we were going to start progressing introductions for children, we implemented that risk assessment process in each and every case, and that's continued. So those risk assessments are actually still signed off by myself as service manager in Adoption Tees Valley, and also by the service manager for the child's care planning service, and so that we've got good oversight about what is actually happening for children and what's happening for other people involved in the arrangements. And that's how we've been able to kind of progress moving children on to adoption. The numbers of children that we've been able to move into their adoptive families has been 45 in the first 2 quarters of the year. And when we looked back and considered what we were able to do and the number of children that moved in the same period in the previous year, that was 33. So obviously, in many, many areas, the adoption placements are just not only about adoption social workers and Adoption Tees Valley. It's really integrated collective work with children's services, with the social worker for the child, and to be able to achieve more children moving on in this safe and carefully planned way, I think was a real success. And I think, you know, we should all really celebrate that. We did have amended regulations that were given to us by the government. We looked at those amended regulations and we had, again, some discussion about what we would do in relation to those regs. We were given the opportunity to stand down our adoption panel, or to reduce the number of members that were required for quoracy. What we decided and discussed with assistant directors and with adoption leads across the Tees Valley region was that we didn't think it was the right thing to do to stand down adoption panel. And certainly people have probably been aware there's been quite a lot of media interest in that. There's been quite a lot of challenge to that practice of standing down adoption panels from a number of different groups, family rights groups. And I think it's absolutely right that the plans for children, the plans for children to be moving in with their adoptive parent should have the scrutiny of adoption panel. And also the approval of adopters should also come under the scrutiny of adoption panel. So we have continued that. I think I've reported that in that period, we did use the flexibility to reduce quoracy on 4 occasions, and we just went to quoracy of 4. And that was pretty much as is going on here today. Sometimes if people are having real struggles with connectivity, we've had to reduce that, but otherwise we've maintained adoption panels. We have had the flexibility to enter adopters into stage 2 of the assessment process without a medical or DBS having yet been returned. And again, when we look at our, you know, how many times we've done that on 9 occasions in that period. I think what I always want to say to those bodies to which really we're accountable is that no adopter has been approved without the DBS checks or without a medical. We take a look at all of that information in our stage 1, and we only progress people into stage 2 if we think that the indicators are that their health is reasonably good. Obviously, what we don't want to do is to have people moving into that in-depth area of the assessment process if in fact it looks like there may be health matters which mean that they are not going to progress. So in terms of social work practice, we've maintained our assessments of adopters through video conferencing. But what we've also really thought about is that the social workers in the team have said, actually, the more that you move on through COVID and we start to meet people by video conferencing, actually, we haven't really built up a relationship with them. So what we realised was that we needed to look at our workers making home visits and going to visit adopters in their home and, you know, doing those home safety checks, but also just kind of beginning to build that relationship with them as well. So we've maintained some level of face-to-face work, although it has been much reduced, the face-to-face work. And in fact, we've probably learned quite a lot about assessment work, that in fact, some of our assessment work can be done via video conferencing, and we will probably discover that that is going to be something where, you know, we can meet the time of day that is better for adopters more easily, and that we can be a little bit more efficient in the way that we do some of that. So, you know, there are some positives to come out of this. We've had some challenges with checks and references being returned. We've had some challenges with GP medicals over the course of this period in time. And I think, you know, whilst we have maintained our work and continued to do our adoption work, we require an awful lot of checks and references in respect of adopters, and not all employers are in work. So we've had to, you know, take some time and do things differently. And you know, to be honest, have quite a lot of chase up on some of the checks that we are required to do. We've managed that. We've progressed our placements. And as I say, we've been able to achieve a higher number of placements. Obviously, here in Middlesbrough, it's important for this corporate parenting board to look at how things have been going in Middlesbrough. And I think what we see over this first 2 quarters of the year is some pictures that tell a story of more children being referred, more children being placed for adoption, and as being able to achieve adoption orders in more cases for Middlesbrough children. We have, on the converse, had some timescales that are higher timescales. Middlesbrough has had some challenging timescales in terms of its adoption scorecard, really over the period of time since the RAA has been live. And, you know, one of the things that we are very aware of is that adoption scorecard data comes once the children are adopted. So there is quite a time lag from children being referred in the care planning stages, the placement of children, and then the adoption order being granted. And so we are still seeing the impact of some children who've waited some considerable amount of time. But in fact, some really, really positive cases of children who are now adopted and, you know, are going to have that security and that permanence via adoption. And I think, you know, some really positive, you know, figures for Middlesbrough over this period of time. We've had 2 groups of sibling groups of 3 children who've been adopted together. And that's really great. That's a really great achievement. We've also had over this period in time, now I have written it down, the Middlesbrough numbers, 7 children who are over the age of 5 who've been adopted. So again, that's a really, really good success and something to be celebrated, because obviously as children get older, it becomes harder to achieve adoption for them. And quite rightly, social workers are looking at whether adoption is always the right plan for children as they get older. So there's been some positives there. In terms of timescales and the timescales for children from the time they become looked after to the time in which they move in with their adopters, you know, we've worked together and, you know, we've been working really closely together with Middlesbrough. I've been attending the improvement board, particularly around the permanence work in Middlesbrough. So what we've been really kind of working on is working more in a more integrated way to try and highlight where there are challenges in terms of some of the processes for children being referred over for an adoption plan, and actually make some changes there. And I think there's some really positive work going on there. And, you know, already I can see Q3 figures coming in, and Q3 figures are showing improvement there. So in terms of, you know, again, going back to Middlesbrough's positives, I've highlighted there the numbers of children who are in those harder to place categories. We call harder to place when they are in sibling groups, where they are over 5, where they are of an ethnic minority. We have been able to achieve more of those children having an adoption plan and achieving adoption. The other area of work that we've been kind of really working on over this period in time is around early permanence. And I think I've spoken at this corporate parenting board before around our strategy and our plans for really what I would call a whole system change in relation to early permanence. And really the reason we talk about whole system change is because we know that we can't just kind of work in Adoption Tees Valley on early permanence and think that we're going to achieve more early permanence for children. But we've been working very closely with children's services and with IROs across the board. We've worked with the local Family Justice Board to try and create a greater awareness of how we can plan for early permanence for children and use some of the legal measures available to us. And, you know, Anne-Marie Wilson, who was, you know, one of the solicitors for Middlesbrough, has been working closely with us. And, you know, we've been really making some progress there in relation to early permanence. So again, it's something that is going to be looked at through Ofsted and through wider scrutiny. But in essence, what it's enabling us to do is to think about reducing moves for children in care and helping children move to their permanent carers more quickly at an earlier stage, which we know in terms of our social work practice has much better outcomes for children. So that's something that we've really been working on. I think we've worked really collectively across Tees Valley on that. And, you know, that's something that we are making some achievements on. We are going to be contributing to the Middlesbrough practice week for children's services, which is going to happen in March. I don't know whether corporate parenting boards had information about that yet. I'm looking at Rachel here and Paula, whether that's something that's yet been discussed at corporate parenting board.
That's hot off the press, Vicky.
Is it hot off the press? All right.
Our planning for practice week, and that information will come through in due course.
Yeah, I know it's been very recent, hasn't it, that we've been kind of talking together about that. But I think one of our service development plans for this year, moving forward into 21-22, is to look at being more integrated into all of the 5 children's services and look at ways in which we can kind of work more closely together. As Rachel said, I won't kind of steal the thunder on that one, but we are going to be working together around practice week with children's social workers and those who are working in children's services. We have some other bits and pieces of work that we've been doing. We have had some challenges around you know, the practice over the period of time over, you know, Q1 and Q2. I think last time I was here, I talked about challenges in relation to life story work, and I think it would be fair to say those challenges have continued over this period in time. And we've really been going back a couple of steps and having some conversations about when are we looking at life story work? Have we got the model right for life story work for children? And, you know, we've been having some discussion about actually starting that much sooner in the child's care journey and actually getting children's social workers to collate that information more cohesively from the outset of their period of time of becoming looked after. It's led us on to some kind of really quite interesting discussions also about exploring digital platforms for life story work. So I've been working with Paula and I've been working with the principal social worker, Siobhan Davies, around looking at what options there could be to actually use one of the digital platforms that's available. So we've already had a demonstration of one. We're going to be looking at another one in a couple of weeks' time, because we think we need to kind of really look at this differently and approach this challenge in a different way. And, certainly looking at digital life story work is something that we're going to be doing. In Adoption Tees Valley, we've also got a researcher working with us at the moment who is doing her PhD on life story work. She is an adoptive parent, she's a social worker, and we have agreed to be a collaborative partner in relation to her research. And that's just beginning to have some really interesting developments in terms of more direct work with children and young people around life story work as well. She's just beginning to get some young people who are engaging around group work and want to contribute to this narrative and this dialogue about how we should take life story work forward. So it's early days at the moment to be able to kind of report on what the outcome of that is likely to be. But I think the encouraging signs are that we are beginning to get some young people together who we are going to be having that discussion with, and they're going to be called junior researchers, and they are going to be contributing to how we actually take that forward, not only in ATV but across the research project as well. We have had some challenges around our assessment timescales. We've just kind of made reference to that. And I think I'll just touch base with that again, because that's something that is in the report. I know that was something that was asked about last time I was here. And it's something we've been looking at, and to a large extent actually there've been challenges which have been, I think I would say, taken out of our hands in terms of our reliance on some other agencies and some other individuals around their contribution to assessments. One of the things that has happened, which has been really positive in the last fortnight, is that I've been able to get some conversation with the CCG, particularly around the question of GPs who've been really challenged about doing adopter medicals. And of course, adopter medicals are required for assessments because that's all part of ensuring that we are recruiting people who have a likelihood of continuing good health, really. And we have been able to get some movement now, some GP practices who are now saying, actually, yes, I will look at doing that adopter medical, and beginning to recognise the importance of that. So I'm having further conversation tomorrow afternoon about that. But that's something that I'm hoping is going to reduce our timescales for assessments and help us move on and achieve more approvals. At the half-year period, our approvals were actually slightly down on this time last year, which is really surprising, because actually we had more people who were actually in the assessment process. That has moved on, and that is moving on during the second half of the year. We're not going to achieve the targets that we set out, but I think it would be fair to say they were very ambitious targets. But we do look like we're going to be in the mid to high 60s for our approvals for this year, which is something that we're really pleased about and something that we want to achieve. So we are now also looking at some work about extending the training, building on the preparation training for adopters with some bolt-on modules, if you like, so that they can consider some of the other aspects of children's needs and think about whether they can meet those needs for children that they might wish to take, and we can support them through additional support and information to them. So those are, that's really some of my kind of key information, my key overview. I think just my final comments really before I open up for questions are that I think, I really want to kind of recognise the work of my team continuing to work during this period in time. It's been such a challenging period as it has for all workers. But they have worked positively and in a really engaged way. We've had very low levels of sickness, particularly in relation to COVID. and people have been looking at how they can do the work in different ways, but also that work across the Tees Valley and with children's services. You know, we've had a lot of really positive conversation and a lot of working together, and a sharing of our approach to how we need to work differently and how we need to overcome some of the challenges during this period. So I think I just wanted to really say that before I open for any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Vicky. That was a very comprehensive overview. And first of all, I think we would all like to say a huge thank you to you and your team for all the work you've been doing during this difficult time. And I think the key word that springs to mind is probably the adaptability that you've found within your resilience to be able to continue to work in this way. So a huge thanks, and that would be minuted, please. But please take our heartfelt thanks back to your team. We do recognise, honestly, the work that all of our bodies are having to do, in Adoption Tees Valley, you know, not at all release. So thanks very much for all of the work. Please convey that to everyone.
Thank you, and I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. So has anyone any questions for Vicky? Well, I can see Paula, and then I saw Carl. Let me write these down. Paula, Carl, and Zafar. Anyone else there in the first round? No. Okay, I'll start.
Sorry, I think Councillor Halloum, he might have said for me to start. Is that right? I didn't catch the end of that.
I didn't catch correct. That either. Yes. Oh, sorry. I said Paula, Carl, then Zafar in the first round.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
I'll
Yes.
speak more slowly.
I just wanted to reiterate really the progress that has been made over recent months, and some of Vicky's comments, particularly about the joint working together from a service point of view operationally. And Vicky's touched upon some of the improvements that we've made. But I just wanted to kind of reiterate, we were doing some work quite recently looking at the progress, and in 2019 to 2020, there was 16 children that were made subject to an adoption order, which is the end part of the process. Actually, in 2020 to 2021, so far, we've already had 22 children, and there's about another 16 applications that are in with the court that are that have been heard initially and that we're actually waiting to conclude. So for us, that's really exciting progress, and really evidences that we are moving children onto permanence through adoption in a much more timely way. I think it's about a 37% improvement so far, and we're expecting that to increase before the end of the year. So our adoption scorecard this year in terms of the numbers of children should be significantly improved. And whilst we're acknowledging that actually the time spent between coming into care and being adopted may be longer, I think we need to reframe that in some senses and understand that actually what it means is that now we're moving these children who have maybe had some delay into permanent adoptive families. So it was to kind of reiterate that, and I think the joint working also is being around, again, Vicky touched upon the joint planning in terms of the improvement plan, and we've been very much joined up in terms of looking at how we need to look at the corporate parenting strategy. We've developed a joint operational plan which looks at all of the specific improvements for permanence for children. Vicky and her team attend monthly permanence monitoring group sessions where we review each child line by line to make sure that we've got the oversight and that we're progressing them cases. And Rachel will probably vouch for the fact that I torture her almost every day with data and good news stories about children that have secured adoption. So I just wanted to kind of share that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's very important and timely that you should underline all the positive outcomes that Vicky's mentioned, because those proportions are significant. You know, if you said already we've had 35%, did you say, improvement? That is significant. But behind all that, behind all the numbers and the data and the statistics, our children and families. And since personally I've been in contact with a family recently, it just hammers it home to you how life-changing, as we all know, welcoming a child into your family is. And I know we talk about numbers here, but every single one of them is life-changing. It's making me tearful just thinking of this example. And we must never lose sight of all the happiness and joy that this process is bringing to people's lives, and people who have been waiting to have adopted children in their lives. And when it happens, it's just, you know, totally transformational, and every single one counts for so much. Can't emphasize how much it is a privilege to work with Adoption Tees Valley and to be aware of the successes and to recognize the progress that the service is making. It's just, well, it's overwhelming to me. I'll just hand over to, did I say it was Carl next?
Yeah, I'd just like to so again share experiences, I guess, as from the foster care's perspective. Karen and I foster babies, so they're all generally below 1 and sometimes newborns. Probably a year ago, the baby we had, we were able to meet with the adoptive parents because we hadn't gone into lockdown back in February a year ago. So we managed to meet them and go to their house, as you do as first intros as adults. But then lockdown came and baby was caught in that, I guess. So ultimately didn't move until probably May, June time in the end. Intros that had to happen in that period were foreshortened because of the pandemic and what have you. And that, for us as foster carers, and as the voice of the baby, really, because clearly the baby couldn't say much, it found it quite difficult because they were foreshortened. And you're looking out for, in those intros, that sort of attachment, if you like. It was difficult because it was a foreshortened period. So we as foster carers, and I know other foster carers have found that quite difficult in that it was a shorter period, and I know decisions were made for all the right reasons around all children, if you like. So I'm not disputing the decisions that were made, but it was difficult, and I know lots of foster carers found that difficult. There was some foster carers caught in, I guess, worse situations, arguably, where COVID or lockdown came with no warnings, and there was some children who were in mid-intros when lockdown came. So you know, they were. It was like a decision. Well, which way do we jump? I guess officers had to make decisions about which way do we jump, because this child's halfway through intros or whatever. Do we push them back to the foster carers, or do we move them on the other way? And that was it. You know, I know those decisions had to be made, but again, there'll be foster carers that found that quite difficult in the way maybe the decision that was that came about. But I appreciate a decision, or it had to be made. This time around, as say we've had a baby in for about 6 months, and we're going through a different experience, because tomorrow we'll be virtually meeting his adopted family and seeing how we'll move on. So it'll be a different experience again. But I think some foster carers, and perhaps some children, say I can only speak hopefully on behalf of the babies, but there'll be other foster carers with older children where that attachment maybe hasn't, you know, things have had to be moved quicker, and it's maybe been hard for the babies or even for older children even to because decisions have to be made quicker than otherwise. Is that my comment?
Thank you, Carl. Does anyone want to? Vicky, do you want to come back on that point?
Yeah, I was just going to acknowledge, Carl, your experiences really, and I think you've really highlighted exactly what's had to happen in terms of each and every child, looking at how is this going to be best achieved? Is it going to be best achieved? You know, what's the case for moving a child now? What's the case for not moving a child now? I guess in most cases, you know, the decisions have been about looking at planning to move children on. For older children, we've had to look at really carefully how that's done in kind of as careful a way and with maximum contact between the child and the adoptive parents. But I think you've highlighted something there which we've really discovered, and you've probably talked about this as a foster carer, the benefits of the, you know, like doing FaceTime or Zoom, with children. And you know what we're hearing about is that actually that's really beneficial to really very small children as well. You know, I'm hearing and social workers are talking about adopters reading stories to very, very young infants actually via FaceTime, and actually then the child, when they actually do meet the adoptive parent, their faces light up because it's almost like they're that lovely person that, you know, is that, you know, a figure that they've become familiar with and a voice that they've become familiar with. And I think we'll do more of this. We've decided to adopt the UEA model, moving on to adoption. We're just piloting that at the moment, but that's all about more contact between adopters and foster carers. It's early stages for us of actually piloting this, but I think that what you've described there is kind of practice that we've learned is really good practice and can enhance introductions moving forward. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you. Carl, you just want to come back on that, and then I'll introduce Zafar. And
Yeah,
I've also seen Teresa's hand. Okay,
sorry,
thank you.
Just come back in. I'll come back on our baby, current baby, as meeting parents tomorrow virtually, and then Friday, I understand we're actually meeting in an open space, but physically meeting. But then, as I understand it, it all goes sort of quiet, if you like, for a month. And I wondered whether is that ATV or is that a legal requirement? Because we can FaceTime, but nothing can really happen for a month. And then we'll do intros, and that just seemed quite a period, a month, for nothing to happen, or nothing to really happen. I know things will be happening behind the scenes, but you know, it'll be FaceTime for a month, and that's like, it almost for me, for a baby, you know, is, and I appreciate from the adopter's perspective, they would argue that's a month lost.
Yeah, I don't know, and I probably shouldn't get too much into the specifics of a case in here, but I'm going to just make a note of that. And
yeah, I was going to mention the case.
Just it's highlighting something. Maybe we just need.
I didn't know whether it was legal, or whether, you know, or whether it was something within ATV. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know in that case, but yeah.
Okay, thank you, Vicky. You'll look into that and get back in touch with Carl on that. I think yes. Okay. So now I'd like to bring in Zafar, please. Thanks, Zafar.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just want to make a couple of comments, and one question maybe at the end, Vicky, I think it's fantastic what you're doing there. Fantastic, really, because they're pleasing three messages there, and I feel quite, you know, pleased about. That's the children like 5+ being adopted. It's a fantastic news, to be honest. It's so difficult, you know, over 4 or 5 to place. And the other one is a sibling together, 3 siblings together. Was in the same placement, yeah? 1 placement together.
2 families of 3 siblings who've been able to be placed together, yeah.
Yeah, that's again absolutely brilliant, because you really struggle with the placement, you know, the like sibling group and so on. And the life story work, that's what I wanted to ask you as well. Life story work obviously is very, very important for the children who are adopted. And do you provide the life story work sort of training for the foster carers? Because foster care could play a key role in that, you know, into the life story work actually for the children. Because obviously the life story work is everything, every single thing included from the day one, where they're born, when they're born, what their name was, and all sorts and everything, you know. So do you provide the training for the foster carers?
Thank you, Zafar. Vicky?
Yeah, it's something that it's a really pertinent thing for you to raise. I think this is something we've reflected on and will be something we will be doing moving forward, as I've kind of mentioned around the Middlesbrough Practice Week and some of the work that we're doing together with the adoption leads. I think that the question of more training is one that we're really kind of very focused on at the moment, and that's something that will come under our planning going forward. Yeah.
Thank you. Can I, before I bring Teresa in, Carl, did you want to come back specifically with something on this point?
Yeah, it was just a Zafar, really. I mean, as foster carers, we've been approached by, and I'm sorry, I forgot the lady's name who's done some of the people that do the life story work, but we've had approaches by those people for, if you like, any photos, any experiences while those children in our care, in order to, you know, fill out those, say, those early days or those early months of their life. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Paula, do you want to come in on this topic, or shall I bring in Teresa? Paula, are you still on this?
Just one quick comment, if that's okay, Chair. Just to say that I attended the fostering network last week with a number of foster carers, where we had quite a detailed discussion about life story work, and we were sharing the thoughts that Vicky's had that we're going to progress around electronic life story work. And the benefit of this really is that there'll be one electronic file, if you like, a life story book that starts from the beginning of the child's journey. So it's not a paper book. Actually, it's going to follow the child wherever the child goes, through different social workers, through different care experiences. So the book will grow with the child's journey, and foster carers are going to be playing a really important role in that. And they were really excited to be part of that and to do some joint work with us around supporting life story work for children in care.
Thank you. That's really interesting to know the electronic version will take precedence possibly now. Thank you, Paula, for that. Teresa, thank you for your patience. I just didn't want to interrupt that part of the debate.
No problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem. Can I just say that Vicky and her team and everybody in the adoption scenario, fabulous. I've read that report by, what they call it, the presentation report. It's fabulous. The news in there, it's really good. And can I just say that when Sue Butcher talks about children, there's one phrase that goes round and round in my mind, and it's, the children are going to their forever home. Do you know, I get a lump in my throat every time she says it. I think it's a lovely expression, that the child is going to their forever home. I think it's lovely. So thank you very much for all the hard work, and foster parents do a fabulous job. So I'd like to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. I'm sure that's echoed by all of us, those thanks to everyone. So if we move on now in the agenda to the final item, which is any other business, I haven't been notified of any. Just two things. I was informed that Jo McTighe submitted her apologies. So just for the record, we do have Joan's apologies. And I want to leave on that beautiful high about the improvement in the adoption situation for children in our area, and echo the huge thanks. And once again, take the opportunity to thank Beth for all her hard work, and wish her all the very best in her new role.
Thank you.
So sorry to leave you, Beth. We're going to get a bit emotional again. I don't know how to do that, clapping like that on the screen.
No,
find the symbol. So thank you to everyone for your attendance. It's been a great meeting tonight. Thank you. And I look forward to meeting you at part 2 or part B. I think we've called it both things. And then we'll continue our examination of the new agenda. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely evening. And thanks for all your contributions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hello.
Thank you.